average profit. We can come here and click profit and change this to average, and now we would see our top end customers by average profit. But we want sales and sum. Okay, so we've created our set, and we can drag it onto rows to see how it works. And we can see these are our top 10 customers by their sales. And we have this in/out that's generated by our set. So if we take our set, first let's see how this line moves when we change our number here. So right now it's 10. When we move it up, we see our line moves down to include the top 15. And now we can quickly see our top 20. We'll go back to 10, and let's grab the set and drag it onto our filters. So now we have filtered the data down to our top 10. If this were applied to a dashboard, this would allow the end user to see the top 10 quickly and then maybe expand it out to the top 20 if they're interested in that information. Now let's move on to creating a donut chart. So a donut chart is basically a pie chart with a white center. So let's start by building a pie chart, which in Tableau is pretty easy, especially if you use Show Me. So let's create a pie chart for each category by sales. So we're going to click category, and then we're going to control click sales. So we have them both selected. We'll come over to Show Me and click pie. And there we have our pie chart. We'll close Show Me. Let's come up here and click entire view so we see our pie very clearly here. If we wanted to have one pie for each region, we can take region and drag that onto columns. So we have one column for each region and then one pie for each of them. You can see that the pie varies in size based on sales, as well as the angle is for sales. So East has more sales in general than South, and this helps you to see that technology has smaller sales in the South than it does in the East. So I recommend keeping, if you're going to make pie charts, allowing the size of the pie chart to be affected as well as the angle by whatever measure you're using. But for our purposes for donut charts, we're going to want them to all be the same size. So we took sales off of size, and now we have all of our pie charts the same size. Now we're going to make what's called a dual axis chart. And to make a dual axis chart, we have to have two axes. So let's grab number of records, and we'll grab it and drag it to rows, and we will change it from sum to minimum. And that's because every record will have a minimum number of rows of 1. And then they all end up on the same axis. Great. And now we're going to make a second number of records by minimum. And we can do that by doing those steps again, by dragging number of records up here and changing it to minimum again. Or a quick trick that I can show you is if you want to duplicate anything you have on the chart here, you can just hit Control and then click and drag it, and it will duplicate it. So if you wanted your number of records to also be down here onto your details or on your labels, you can control click it and then leave it there. Great. So now we have our two axes, and we have our two marks cards that each affect their own set of visualizations. So let's go to this top one affects these. So let's show that by changing the size. And it's made these bigger. And this bottom one affects these. And we'll do that by changing it to circle. So now each of these are a circle. Let's take category off of color, and we can take sum of sales off of detail. And let's change the color to white. And now we're going to put this white circle on top of our pie chart by clicking here on our second measure and clicking dual axis. And now it's got them lined up one on top of the other. And we have our donut chart. So if we want our donut slices to be a little thinner, we can change the size of our inner circle and make it bigger. Perfect. And so now we have one pie chart for each region, one donut chart for each region. And if we wanted to take this header and put it inside of our pie chart, what we can do is take region and put it on the label for the circle, and it's putting it down here. You can come and edit that by clicking on label and changing its alignment. So let's put it in the middle. Perfect. So now we can see our header here, so we don't need it down here anymore. You can right click and click show header, and it hides that header. We also don't want to see our labels for our axes. So we right click and click show header there, and now we just see our pies. So to get how the number of sales here for each of them, let's go to, remember, our pie marks card, and let's take our sales and add it to label. So now each of our slices of pie can tell you how much sales they have. If you take the sales here that's on label, right click and click format, we can change that to currency. And let's get rid of our decimal places. Perfect. Now close formatting, and let's say we want the total amount of sales to be in the middle here with central. So we go back to affecting our circle, grab sales, drag it to label. So now we have 4 donut charts formatted to allow us to quickly see the sales numbers for each segment and also for the donut as a whole. You can also change the colors that Tableau selects for each slice by coming to the marks card that has color for the pie, so category color, and clicking edit colors. And you could change it to any of these automatic ones, where if you double click on one, it gives you all of the options for colors that you could possibly want. There's also several different palettes you could choose from. So let's say we like this one, and you can just click assign palette and it will grab those off of there. Those look very similar to what we have already, so I'm going to pick a different one. And click assign palette, click apply. And this allows you to make some color changes to fit your business a little bit more specifically. Perfect. Let's say we make our pies bigger. Increase that size, and we'll also increase the center size. Oh, not that much. Perfect. Now we'll use a similar technique to create the two-dimensional pie chart. A two-dimensional pie chart can be used so that you can show 2 pie charts at the same time, or a pie chart that's kind of split up by different categories. This has been available in some other tools, and Tableau can do it too. So let's just demonstrate that. We're going to start again by creating our generic category by sales. So we'll control click sales, we come over to show me and click pie, and it makes our pie for us. It remembers the colors that you have determined in other pages, so that's a nice feature. Again, let's make it entire view so we can see our pie nice and big. And now we're going to create our dual axis again. So we grab number of records, put it on rows, and see how it adds an axis, but each one of these categories has a different value for the number of records. However, they have the same minimum value for number of records, and it puts them all back onto the same spot. Great. And then we will control click and drag to make our 2 axes. And let's come to our top one and make it bigger. That affected both of them because we still have sales on size for both of them. So sales is affecting the size of the pie chart as well as the size of the angles. So let's take sales off of size for both of them and make the second pie chart a little smaller. Perfect. Now let's also affect our second pie chart by having the color defined by region instead of defined by sales. Let's talk about how I'm replacing it with region. So you could change the color by dragging region onto color, and that replaces it. Or let's go back and we can drag region right on top of the thing we're trying to replace, and it will replace it there. Great. So now we have the smaller circle that's going to go on top, split up by region with the angle defined by sales, and the category is on the top one with the angle defined by sales. Let's pick some nicer colors. Maybe we'll use the same palette we used for category. This one seems right, but we'll pick different ones than those 3. So we click on the one we want to change and click on the color we want to change it to. I'm just going to keep following this right down. Apply. Great. And then we put it on top of the other one by clicking dual axes. Now, sometimes it's easier to see these when they have a border. So we can come to color, we click border and add maybe some black lines. So allow you to see the inner pie separate from the outer pie. Maybe our border could have white lines. How does that look? And we can make them both bigger, like we did before. Whoa, not that big. And you can also add labels like we did before. We'll take sales onto our labels here. And you can see that hovering allows you to see all of the information you need. Now, one more thing. So while we like to hide this axis, we'd also like to maybe hide this grid line that's occurring. So you can click right click and format. And let's go to our lines. Change that 0 line to none. Perfect. Get rid of some of the clutter on this visualization. I still feel like this outer pie should be a little bigger. And we want to clean up our tooltip so it doesn't have min number of records in it. This piece should be 100% behind the scenes. So we can come to tooltip. Right as you click on it, it'll pop up with everything that's in your tooltip. And we're just going to erase min number of records. I erased too much. You need to leave your angle brackets. Okay. And now this piece of the pie no longer has that. The inner one, let's do that there too. Min number of records, remove that right out. And there you have it, a two-dimensional pie chart. And here are our donut charts. This demonstration goes to show you that even when Tableau doesn't have visualization you're looking for in their basic show me options, you can still get to it. So donut charts aren't included up here, and neither is a two-dimensional pie chart, but without too much extra work we can make it happen. These visualizations are a little bit more complex than your everyday visualizations, and so I recommend going through this tutorial with the dataset and following along. If you want access to the dataset, just comment below and the Simply Learn team will get back to you. Also, comment below with any questions you have. At this point in the presentation, we're going to put together some dashboards. So first, let's build our worksheets for this dashboard. We're going to build a worksheet called Sales by Year, which adds the name up here. And we're going to take our order date and drag it onto columns. And now we want this to be a continuous axis. So we're going to change it to our continuous year. And now we have an axis. And we're going to look at sales. So now we have our sales by year. If we want labels on each of these dots, we can drag sales onto labels. And if we want to have different color lines for each region, for example, we can drag region onto color. And that splits our lines up into the different regions and gives us a legend over here. Perfect. Now we're going to duplicate this sheet by right-clicking down here and clicking duplicate. Now we have sales by year 2. Let's rename it to profit by year. And then let's drag profit right over top of sum of sales so that it replaces it with profit. Now, it's been replaced with profit and all of these different data points are here. However, it's still showing the title of sum of sales, and that can be very confusing. So always make sure that your labels are consistent with your data. So let's take profit and drag it over top of the type labels as well. That's more consistent with our axis. So now we have sales by year and we have profit by year. Let's do a couple of things to clean these up, like right click here, go format, and we'll change our numbers to currency custom. And now it's marked as dollars. One thing you can do in Tableau is, let's undo that. Since sales is going to be dollars pretty much everywhere we use it, we can define our default property for these numbers. So when we right click on the measure here, you can go to default properties and you have the options to change the defaults for any of these things. And we're going to change our number format. Change it to currency custom, no decimal places, hit OK, and that also has updated this sheet. Now that only works on places where you haven't specifically defined it to be formatted differently. So we could still define it to be different here on this sheet than it is on any other sheet. Let's do the same thing for profit. Change our default properties to the same thing. Great, now let's build our dashboard. We're going to call this our overall dashboard. Change our size. This size is a personal preference of mine. I think it fits nicely on the laptops that I use and that is used by most of our customers. Now let's drag sales by year. Now watch what happens when I drag it on here. It brings sales by year, but it also brings the legend for the region that was created. The same thing should happen with profit by year. It's detected that the same legend is being used, so it didn't bring over a second legend. And we have highlighting turned on. Let's see if this works for both charts. We click on Central, and you see it highlights Central in both charts. That's great. So now we have a dashboard showing us profit by year and sales by year. But let's say we want to be able to filter this dashboard to just maybe one category. So let's go back to our sales by year sheet, and let's drag category onto filters. And now it's going to let us select, we're going to select all and hit OK, and then right click on category and click show filter. So now it is over here, and we're going to do a similar thing on profit by year, but we'll do the shortcut where you come over here to category, you right click on it and you just click show filter, and it puts it here and it puts it here. So now we have a filter here for category and a filter here for category. And so when we go to overall, we can come to our drop down here, more options, hover over filters, and you can see category. Now here's an interesting thing that we'll see. Even though we have a category filter on both charts, when I take furniture out, you can see only sales by year changed. And profit by year stayed the same. Now why would that be? That's because we have two different filters for category, one on the sales worksheet and one on the profit by year worksheet. I'll show that by clicking here, going to filters, and grab category. Now we have category that will affect profit by year and not sales by year. That's not what we want. We want one filter to affect them both. So let's back it up a bit. Take these back off. Let's go to profit by year, and we're going to take off category. Let's go to sales by year, and we're going to say we want this same filter to affect both worksheets. So we're going to right click here, hover over apply to worksheets, and click selected worksheets. Now we select sales by year is selected, and we select profit by year. Okay, so when we go to the profit by year sheet, you can see that it now has category on there. Let's go to overall, let's come here, filters, category, and now we have a filter that affects both worksheets. There we go. Let's format this filter a little bit. We'll come to more options, and we're going to select, we want them to be able to select multiple values still, but let's do it in a drop down. So now you still have those options, but it is a little bit more compact. Let's do a couple more filters. So we can do by category, let them filter out regions. Let's do it the shorter way. Right click, show filter, there it is. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, both of these. Okay, dashboard, filters, and by region. Multiple values drop down, and let's let them change their time selection. So this one's a little bit different. Since we've already determined that we wanted year and we wanted it to be continuous, filters for continuous fields are a little bit different than filters for these discrete fields. And that's because continuous fields are a range instead of just a list. So we don't list out a continuous field, we make a range for it. So we've already defined that we want it to be continuous year. And if I come over here and click on right-click order date and click show filter, it's doing discrete year by default. So remove filter. If you drag order date onto filters, it lets you pick what you want it to look at. Let's come up here to year. That's already marked as continuous and click show filter. And now it is year, but it's based on a range, and we have this slider. And you can see how that slider affects our visualization. Let me show you a trick to make this apply to both. Not a trick, but just if you have not applied it to both worksheets, but you already added it to the visualization. See, it's here, but it's only affecting one worksheet. You can change the worksheet's settings right on the filter instead of having to go to the worksheet where the filter exists. And it will only give you the options of the worksheets that are on the dashboard. So there we have it. Now it affects both. And now we have our overall dashboard. Now let's say you want to be able to see the total sales on this chart as well as the sales split up by each of the regions. We can do that as well. So let's go back to our sales sheet. As a quick tip, you can go to the sheet by clicking this Go to Sheet button here or here in the event that you want to go to a sheet but you don't want to scroll back and forth to find where it is. So go to Sheet. Now we're going to do a dual axis chart again like we showed earlier, and I'm going to Control, click and drag. So now we have sum of sales twice. This marks card affects the top one. So we can see that by, if I change the opacity, how it changes the color right here. This is the top one. And this marks card is the bottom one. And we're going to remove region off of color. And that makes our combined one line again. Perfect. Now if we want this to be on the same space as this, we right click here, the second measure in the rows section, and click dual axis. So let's put it right on top. I can see this versus this. Now if we wanted to on hover show that this is overall sales, we can click on tooltip. Region is missing because we don't have it with the color by region anymore. So we'll erase that and put, oh, we don't want it to be orange. Let's make it black. Overall sales. Okay, so when you hover here, it says overall sales. So we can see the difference easily. Let's make it a little bit more of a color that'll stand out. Just a little darker than the others, perhaps. So when we go back to our work or our dashboard, we can see sales and we can see our overall sales. Let's do the same thing for profit by year. Go to Sheet and Control, drag, release. We'll go to our marks card for this second sheet and pull off region. Make it darker. Change our tooltip. Not orange. Overall profit. Okay. And right click, dual axis. There we go. Now I forgot to do one thing on the last dashboard. When you make a dual axis dashboard, it doesn't necessarily sync up these axes. And so this axis over here is for the overall line, and this axis over here is for the region line. So if we want it to stay that way, we should edit our axes, and instead of calling it just profit over here, we'll change it to overall profit, and over here, profit by region, just so that it's clear which axis goes to which one. Or you can come here and click synchronize axis. So it's very clear that this is much bigger than these. And if you synchronize the axis, let's go back before we named him. Okay, synchronize the axis, then we don't need both of these headers. So we can come here and click show header and we just have the one. Let's do the same thing on sales by year. Synchronize. Always good to make sure that your axes are either synchronized or well labeled. And let's hide it. Let's see what it looks like now. Great. Okay, one thing to keep in mind. When we do filter to just one region, the lines are going to end up at the same spot. If we filter to 2, then it's only the sum of those 2. So perhaps the header overall sales and overall profit isn't quite accurate because it isn't overall necessarily when we have it filtered. Why does this happen? Why doesn't this line always show the total no matter what you select here? Well, that's because this filter applies to the whole dashboard. So it filters this line to those regions just as much as it filters these lines. So I'm going to remove out that tooltip line because it could be a little misleading. Let's continue on and make a dashboard that digs a little bit more into sales specifically. Great, so we'll make our first sheet. We'll call it Sales by Region. And we're going to make another pie chart. So let's do it using Show Me. We'll click on Region. And then we will control click on Sales, open up Show Me, click Pie. Let's close it again. Great, so now we have the Sales by Region pie. We'll make it the entire view. And when you hover, you can see that it's showing us sales in dollar amounts. Now, it would be more like a pie for it to be percentages. So a lot of pies, each of these slices is shown as a percentage of the whole at 100%. So let's come here to our slice size. We'll right click on it and we're going to use what's called a quick table calculation and change it to % of total. So now when you hover, you can see that the West is 31% of the pie. Great. Let's also label each of these slices. So I'm going to control, click, and drag region onto label and add region to the labels. I'm going to undo that and show you what would happen if I just dragged region onto labels without copying it, without holding control. It will move it and get rid of our colors, and we don't want that. So we're going to control and drag. Another way to do this, let's go back, is by taking region and dragging it onto label just straight from over here. But in this case, for the sum of sales where we've applied the quick table calculation, we want that quick table calculation to also show up in our label. So I'm going to control and drag, and it brings that quick table calculation along with it. If I were to undo, just drag sales on, it's going to go back to that dollar amount, and I'm going to have to add another quick table calculation. So instead, control and drag. That's probably one of my very favorite Tableau tricks. Great. Now let's add a filter for region. So I'm going to right click here and click Show Filter. And we will make sure that this gets added to all of our sheets once we've made them all. Okay, next sheet. We're going to call this sheet Sales by State. Let's do a map. Great. So one way to get your map started is to double click on any of these dimensions that have a globe next to them. So since we want to go with state, we can double click on state and it starts mapping out state. So what it does is it adds latitude and longitude to our rows and columns that are generated here. And another way to get going, so let's go back, is to click on the geographic part you want and then control click on sales like we did for for our pie chart. Come over to Show Me and choose one of our maps. We could do it with the circles, but we're going to do a filled map. Click on that. So now we have our filled map based on state. We can choose one of these different palettes if we'd like. Let's try this one. Or blue teal. Or we could do green, so that darker green means more money. Great. So now we have all of our states colored by sales. Let's also control and drag sales onto label. And you can see we have the dollar sign and the money formatting that we made earlier. And let's control and drag state onto label. Now maybe we want the state to be on top, so we can click on label and it pops up with all these different options. And if we want to edit the text, you can click here on the ellipses and edit it there. So let's cut state and paste it at the top there. I think I lost my center alignment, so we'll do that again. Hit apply, see what we think. Great. Okay, so now you can see that it puts the state on top. You can also see in some of these places where they're super close together that you can't see all of the states labels, and that's because this option here in labels is unchecked. Allow labels to overlap other marks. So Tableau senses when the marks are too close together and it's going to become too hard to read, and will hide anything that overlaps with each other. If we click this option, now you see everything, but it gets a little crowded over here. So let's unselect that, and you'll be able to see what the sales are upon hover. Great. Now we have our sales by state. For filters for this one, let's right click on sales here and click show filter. So basically, wherever you're using your metrics, your dimensions or your measures, you can right click on them and create your filters. So now we could, the lowest amount for a state is $920 for sales for this time period, and we could filter out ones that have sales lower than that. But I think this isn't what I want. Let's remove that filter. Let's do it for the state. Show filter. Great, so now we could filter out a state. We could just show Arizona or show them all. Excellent. Let's move on to our next visualization. New sheet. Rename it to be called Sales by Subcategory. Great. So we're going to drag on category onto columns and subcategory. Because of our hierarchy, press plus. Now we have subcategory and category, and let's bring on sales. It's defaulting to this bar chart, which is perfect. That's what I want. And now we could color it by subcategory, and this is a discrete coloring. We could also color it by sales, and this is a continuous coloring. So the darkest corresponds with the height. Now we don't need to do this. There is already an indicator of who has the most sales, and that's based on the bar height. So if we wanted to color it by subcategory, then each one of them gets their own color. We could color it by category to add to the distinction between the different categories. So that's very clear where they start and stop. Let's do by subcategory. Excellent. So now we have 3 different dashboards. Oh, let's add some filters for subcategory. So let's bring on category as our filter. So we'll right click here, click show filter, and there's category. And let's do a filter for our date. So we're going to come here to order date. Let's drag it onto filters, and let's click years. Now these are all the years options. We'll click all and hit OK. Right click here and click show filter. So now instead of doing a range where we could drag that line, now we have discrete filter, and so we can check and uncheck boxes to choose what years we want to see. Awesome, let's start with our dashboard. Let's call this dashboard our sales dashboard and change our size. If you have any questions about different sizes, what's available here, be sure to ask that in the comments below. And let's start with pulling on our sales by region. So last time we pulled on a chart, we saw that it added the legend for us. But this time you can see it added both the legends and the filter. So last time we created the filters after we built the dashboard, but this time you can see that the filter gets brought in when we brought in the dashboard. Let's do our sales by state, side by side here, and let's do sales by subcategory underneath. So I dragged it. You can see how I pull it towards the bottom of the dashboard, and it kind of fills in the space where it's going to be and then brings it in. So now it's brought in all our filters and all of our legends. It defaults to putting the filters and legends over here. We're going to click select layout container. It's going to select what they're all inside of, and we're going to make it take up this whole side, but it doesn't need that much space. So you can see in Tableau there's a lot of dragging, there's a lot of dropping, and a lot of resizing to get things the way you want them to be. Give our map more room. And we have a mixture over here of legends and filters. Let's move our legends out of there. So we can grab this legend and come and put it on this side. And this legend, come and put it over here, so that we're getting a little bit more near the visualizations they belong to. This legend goes up here with this one. I'm going to actually click here and change it from a tiled, so right here it says tiled object, to a floating object. That lets it sit on top of a visualization. I'm going to put it on top of this visualization right up here. Excellent. And then we have this one that's showing us the size of sales. That's because on this dashboard, it says that size is determined by sales, but since it's just one circle, there's no size comparison. So it's not like we have several circles and we have to look and see which one's the biggest so that we can tell the amount of sales. So we don't need this legend and we can just remove it from the dashboard. Let's clean up some of these. We have several different versions of what your filters could look like. So my personal favorite is multiple values drop down. It gives you some of the most flexibility. But if you wanted them to only be able to select a single value, you could turn it into a radio button list so that it's a selected all or it's one at a time. You could also do a drop down or a slider and make that happen. A slider is a little bit different from a range. On a range, you can see that we could edit either side, and it's picking everything in between. But with discrete values, if you say everything in between, it doesn't make a lot of sense because what's everything between furniture and technology? We don't know that office supplies goes between those. There's no order. So let's do multiple value drop downs. For big ones like state, there is the option of searching. So I know I want Utah, and I search and there's Utah, instead of having to scroll through the list. This could be really helpful for if you had a filter by products, and that will allow somebody to look at just one product at a time if they know their name of the product, but also not have to just open up the product list and scroll and scroll and scroll, since there are a lot of products. So we can filter by region by doing this. Oh, this is a great reminder. You saw that this did not change all the visualizations, and we have yet to apply these filters to all the worksheets. So let's do that right now. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, and we will click all on dashboard. Hit OK. We'll do this again. Until we have selected them all. Great. So it's really nice you get to choose what worksheets you wanted to apply to, because in the event that you had maybe a total number up here at the top that you just wanted to stay the same all the time, no matter what they selected, you could make that happen by not selecting that worksheet to be changed by these filters. Okay, great. So we can change what region we're looking at by selecting Central here. And then we're just looking at Central throughout all the visualizations. I love looking at it on a map and seeing just one at a time. It just really makes the region name just stand out to you. But if we wanted to use this as our filter to filter the rest of the dashboards, we can click this Use as Filter button. And now when we click on Central here, it stays in context here, but the other two dashboards change. One thing you may notice is that Texas is not the darkest on this chart because of the scale. The scale goes up to 500,000 there. But then when we click on Central, the scale updates just for what's selected. So everything else is filtered out, and now the darkest of the dark is only $170,000. And Texas becomes the darkest on the visualization. There are some ways you can change that, but if you're wondering why do my colors look a little differently when I filter, that's why. Great. We could also click Use as Filter here. So if we just wanted to look at Texas, we click this. This updates to just Central. This updates to just Texas down here. And unselect by clicking on maybe another state, or when you click on the state again, it should unselect. And we can do the same thing here, or if we just want to look at one subcategory and say, oh, let me scroll down a bit, storage. Now everything updates to just storage. It's interesting. I wouldn't have known very quickly that there are some states that didn't have any storage sales, but now when we click on storage we can tell. I showed you before that you can control click and look at binders and storage, and it puts those two together. Also, in Tableau, you can drag, and we could select all of these. So we have art, binders, envelopes, fasteners, labels, paper, and storage. And none of those are getting sold here. I don't know what's up with Wyoming. Excellent. So now we have our sales dashboard. And let's get started on our next one. Our next dashboard is going to be the profit version of this dashboard. So some of these visualizations we can use again. So let's go to sales by region. Right click and click duplicate. Rename it to profit by region. Now you have to be careful whenever you go to reuse a visualization because, like I mentioned before, you got to make sure everywhere that sales is used, you have to replace it with profit. I'm also going to drag this sheet to be more at the end here after the sales dashboard, just to keep them separate so that we have the sheets that lead up to overall, then the sheets that lead up to sales, and then we'll have the sheets that lead up to profit. Great. So we'll grab profit and drag it onto angle size, and that updates the angle size. Drag it onto the size of the circle. Shouldn't make a difference since we only have one circle, and onto the text. Now when I dragged it on, it didn't do the percent of total anymore, so let's change that to the quick table calculation of percent of total for there and for the label. Percent of total. There we go. Now we have our percent of total again by region. Okay, here's another thing. Since we duplicated that filter, it's going to be using that exact same filter. You see, it's using region from sales by region, all the sales dashboards. But we don't want that. So let's remove out all the filters here and these action filters that are generated by our filtering. Those come from this. These are called action filters. And it's generated when we click this uses filter button. Okay, back to profit by region. Great, we're clear of filters. And let's add back in a region filter. And this one no longer has the icon that shows you that it affects multiple sheets, which is what we want for now. So you might want, perhaps there would be a situation where you would have two dashboards and you would want these filters that you put on here to affect both dashboards. And in this case, that's not what I want. Great, so another one we can use the basics for is sales by subcategory. So let's duplicate that. Great. Profit by subcategory already exists. We made this earlier. Tableau will not allow you to make a worksheet that has the same name as another worksheet. You can call it number 1, or since it does put the title up here, you can put an extra space at the end, or it does detect that space. It counts it as a different title even though it's the same title just with a space. That does cause some issues. So like when we're looking here and we're saying, oh, profit by subcategory, I want that. Oh, this is when we made it. But you don't want this one, you want this one, and it gets a little confusing. The nice thing is when you're dragging things onto your dashboard, when you hover, you should get a little picture here of what dashboard, what visualization you're looking at. It really helps you to make your decisions and not just have to do it by name. If you're a little bit disorganized and you have all of these called sheet 5, sheet 7, you won't know exactly what that is right away. So that little preview is very helpful. Great, profit by subcategory. We'll do the same thing by removing out all our filters. So I just click on it and hit delete. You can also control click and then hit delete, or you can drag them off into a space that's not the visualization space. Great, and we only have sum of sales right there, so we'll change that to profit. And we have some negative profits there. We'll keep the colors the same for consistency between the two dashboards. And let's bring on category as a filter. Okay, show filter, there we are. And let's do our order date filter right now. Order date, we'll do years, okay, all the years. So it gives you this option here because it assumes that you're making a filter because you want this dashboard to just be filtered to your selection. You can do that. You can make a filter that isn't exposed to the end user. So let's say you were making a big dashboard and it was just focused on furniture, and you don't want them to be able to select a different category because of your analysis. You can make that happen. You can just click furniture and not show this by clicking hide card here. But in this case, we want to be able to make this interactive in a lot of different ways. Great, profit by subcategory exists. Now, instead of our map, we're going to make an area chart. So I'll rename this and call it profit over time by category. So we're going to bring on our order date into columns, and it goes to our discrete value. Let's change it to our continuous value so we get the axis. Let's grab our profit onto rows, and it makes us a line chart. We're going to change that to an area chart. An area chart is nice because when you split it up by category, by dragging category onto color, you can now see what category is responsible for how much profit, like you do with a line chart. However, its area is what defines that, so you can see that area over time and do comparisons. And also, it stacks them on top of each other so that you can tell that for 2013 our profit was around $50,000 really quickly. Otherwise, we have to add that line, this line here, and it makes these lines smaller and lower, more difficult to see. So back to our profit over time by category. So that's some of the benefits of having an area chart. And if we wanted to go a little more detailed than year, you can hit this plus. And now we have over quarter. We have some negative profits. That's interesting. But let's go back to over the year. Great. And for this one, we're going to make one more pie chart. So we could start from scratch, or we could duplicate our profit by region pie chart, which I'm going to do. We're going to do this for the comparison between a pie chart and an area chart. So it's going to be profit by category, but not over time. So right now it's profit by region. Let's drag category right on top of colors there. And now it's split up. It's having some trouble because it's splitting it by category, but because we brought region onto text, it's also splitting it by region. So we have region, 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 region inside of this category, and we don't want that. So we're going to drag category right on top of region here as well, and now it's just the 3 segments. So whatever you have in this marks card, unless it's on tooltips, will affect your level of detail in the visualization here. When it's on tooltips, sometimes it won't change the level of detail, but it could have an effect on, so if we brought, let's do this right now. So right now the level of detail of this chart does not go to the category by region like it did before. You can bring it onto detail here, and it won't affect color and it won't affect labels, but it will change the detail, and you see how it splits it out again. This is what it would look like if it's by region, by category, and you have much more slices to this pie. We'll go back. But if we take region and put it onto tooltip, it's not at a low enough level for that tooltip to make any sense, so it's going to put that star. You see region is star. That's because this section of the pie covers multiple regions. If we filtered the region to just central, now it populates. So there are sometimes benefits to having it in there, even when at all levels it doesn't make any sense, but we won't leave it there. Excellent. So you can see how the color is what determines, is a big part of what determines how many slices you get. The level of detail for the whole chart is a big factor as well on how many slices you get. Great. Profit by region, profit by category, by subcategory, and by profit over time. And we have our category filter. We don't have our subcategory filter yet. We grabbed category, but let's right click on subcategory and click show filter. There we go. Now we have a filter for category and subcategory. Here's our region one. We have region in 2 places and we don't want that. We want it to apply to all of them. We'll do that when we get to the dashboard. And we have category, year of order date, and subcategory. Great, those are all the filters I wanted. So let's build our dashboard. We'll call this our profit dashboard once I get it set to the size I want. Profit. We'll start with profit by region. And we'll have our profit by category over time next to it. Great. We'll give that some different space. Have this at the bottom. Have this underneath there. Now it's bunched all these up next to it, so let's again drag it over to the side. It's always good to pay attention to the highlighted section, and it gives you kind of an idea. Oh, you see, I accidentally dragged an individual filter instead of this whole section. So when I grabbed this, I didn't grab all of these. So if you want to grab all of these and they happen to be inside the same section, you can come and click select a layout container. And now I'm grabbing all of them. There we go. We'll do the same thing as before. You know what? I'm going to make these floating, because then it kind of sits inside of that same area. We'll make that one floating. And this one too. This category legend applies to both this chart and this chart. So that's very nice. And this subcategory legend, I won't make floating, I'll just put here by subcategory. And this profit by category doesn't need quite that much space. Let's give our bar chart some room. Excellent. We don't need the size of the circles. Make these drop downs. Now, because I didn't have to on this chart and this chart change profit to dollars, because we set that as the default, it definitely saved us some time. So I recommend setting default number formatting at the beginning of your visualizations. Really nice. Excellent. Now you can rearrange the order of these. So I like to have the date at the top. It's sometimes hard to get it to the top, so I take it the second to the top and I drag the top one down. And then category above subcategory, just for logical sense. Excellent. And we have our profit dashboard. Let's see. There is this checkbox down here called Show Dashboard Title. So if we wanted to have the title at the top here, you can click that button. Any floating objects don't shift down like everything else did. There we go. So we could have that title, we could not have that title. That's up to you. Excellent. So at this point, we have our overall dashboard that looks at sales and profit. We have our sales dashboard, and we have our profit dashboard. Our profit dashboard isn't 100% complete because I forgot to make sure all of these filters apply to all of these worksheets. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, all on dashboard. One thing that is nice, from this view, it's really nice to click all on dashboard and you only see the ones on the dashboard. But you can click here and say show all worksheets in workbook, and you can see the rest here. So if you wanted all on the dashboard and you wanted this one or something like that, then you have the option to see them all. Great. Perfect. So before you ever publish a dashboard, it's always good to double check that your filters work. When you filter to just 1 year, this area chart becomes a lot less useful. But if you're looking at 2 or more, you start to see the shape of it. Great. Now we're going to take a look at linking from our overall dashboard to our sales dashboard. Great, so we'll go to our overall dashboard and we'll be creating what's called an action. So you can make an action on a worksheet. You can see right here, actions, or on a dashboard, actions. So since we're linking between two dashboards, this is going to be a dashboard action. Sorry, just trying to unhighlight there. But if you're ever looking for an action you made and you can't find it, look in the other one. Great, this is our actions dialog box. Here we can see the highlight that has been generated. When it says generated next to it, that means that you didn't come in and define an action. It was made by clicking this highlight button here. That'll generate an action. Or when we look on our sales dashboard, we clicked on this uses filter button. So we should have several actions here that were all generated. We have a couple different kinds of actions when you go to make an action. There's a filter action that we see when we click use as filter, a highlight action that we can see from here in region, and a go to URL action that we haven't used. If you have any questions about go to URL, please post them in the comments below. It basically allows you to be able to select a URL here, and so if you had a dashboard that had to do with maybe stocks, you could put in a URL here and then put your stock ticker symbol there so that you could have a URL that would then take you to a finance website that shows you your stock information. It can get pretty cool. Okay, but we want to link from this dashboard to one of our other dashboards, and you actually do that using a filter action. So we're going to name that action Go to Sales Dashboard. And we want it to happen when we click on our sales sheet. So you see right here it shows us the two sheets that are on this dashboard. When we click on the profits dashboard, we don't want this action to occur. This is our Go to Sales Dashboard. Now you can have an action occur on hover or select. You've seen select happen. That's what our filter uses filter actions use. And on menu. So we're going to do it on menu. And the targeted sheets, it defaults to this dashboard saying when I click on this I want the rest of this dashboard to update. But instead it's going to take us to our sales dashboard. So when we click on this I want these sheets to update. Now we're going to define what filters it's going to apply. By default, it's going to apply all of the filters based on what we click. So if we click here, it will filter to just 2013. Let's say we click here. It'll filter to just 2013, and it will filter to the region we selected. So let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, it's just going to default. Okay, now when I click on this, it's going to filter to 2013 and west. Go to Sales Dashboard. This is where it pops up when you have it on menu. It's taken us to our Sales Dashboard. It is filtered to 2013 and west. Just so you know, actions will not affect these filters here. You see that it thinks all of them are selected because it creates a separate filter. There is such thing as show only relevant values for these filters. So if we click this, it will filter this to only the ones that are relevant. So we can see that it's only 2013 that this dashboard is filtered down to. But if we click all values in the database, this filter doesn't have only one particularly selected. It does have them all selected right now. So we can get here for that information, and to get back, we just need to navigate back to overall. Great, so it works there. But when we click on this up here, go to Sales Dashboard, we get a blank dashboard. Now, that happens because it's trying to pass region information to that dashboard, but this doesn't have any region detail on this line. It doesn't know what that is, so it's giving it a bad region value. So let's fix this. Go to our actions. We're going to edit our Go to Sales Dashboard, and we're going to select what fields it'll filter on. We will filter on our order date, year, and let me go back to that. We clicked order date, year, and it goes to the target data source. Sometimes your target data source will be a different data source than the one that you are using for your source data source. Now, that gets a little bit complicated. Right now, we're just using one data source, so that's not something you need to worry about in a simple visualization like this. Okay, and we're going to add one more. We're going to add region, and it automatically selects region over here, but you could select it yourself. Let's see what happens here. Okay, if one dashboard has region in it and the other dashboard doesn't have region in it or doesn't allow you to filter by region, then sometimes you'll get an error here that will say it's missing out of your target dashboards. So we don't have any errors, so let's see what happens. So we go to click here, go to sales dashboard. What if we take out region, remove region, and we're just doing it based on year? Okay. Click here, go to sales dashboard.